Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation. I'm, I'm going to explain how hardware and software could be used to minimize network security threats. My introduction. In this presentation, I'm going to speak about 5 pieces of hardware that will help minimize network security threats and 5 pieces of software that will help prevent security threats. For my introduction, I'm going to explain the 5 pieces of hardware and the 5 pieces of software that will help minimize network security threats. The first piece of hardware to minimize network security threats is the firewall. The firewall monitors and controls traffic that is incoming and outgoing through security regulations. Firewalls are barriers which are in between trusted internal networks as well as untrusted networks. Firewalls help with the blockage of unauthorized access via the filtering of malicious data packets. Firewalls are crucial for sustaining compliance along with security standards for the protection of sensitive organizational information. For example, firewalls are really important for the compliance in addition to the standards of security for the protection of sensitive organizational data. Firewalls continuously generate logs such as alerts which help administrators to detect suspicious activities earlier. For example, firewalls need continuous generation of logs as well as alerts so that administrators are able to detect suspicious so that administrators are able to detect suspicious activity before it doesn't get recognized. Firewalls are able to support network segmentation via the control of traffic in between other internal network zones. For example, firewalls have got the support of network symmetry through the control of traffic which go between other internal network zones. Firewalls have the ability to enforce policies which can restrict access to certain types of websites, including services and applications. For example, a firewall can decide what website is safe and what service is secure, as well as check the safety of the application to protect the device. Firewalls that are modern have the ability to inspect packets deeply so that the content of data gets analyzed to check for hidden threats. For example, modern firewalls have to go through deeper packet inspection so that content of the data could get analyzed to see if there are any threats which are hidden. Firewalls are important for preventing cyber attacks like port scanning, including malware infiltration and unauthorized remote access. For example, firewalls are helpful for the prevention of cyber attacks like malware infiltration, including port scanning and gaining unauthorized access. Firewalls are able to filter data packets that are only legitimate for safe traffic to go through. For example, firewalls have the ability for filtering data packets that are only legitimate for safer traffic to come through. 8. Firewalls which are hardware. Firewalls which are hardware consist of physical devices which get placed on the network perimeter so that unauthorized access attempts get blocked. For example, firewalls consist of physical hardware devices that get put on the perimeter of the network so that the attempts of unauthorized access are blocked. Firewalls create secure boundaries which are among trusted internal systems plus untrusted external networks, including the internet. 10. Firewalls act as the first signal of defense. Firewalls act as the first signal of defense within networks so that all of the traffic that's outgoing and incoming is monitored via the security which is defined. For example, firewalls are the first key of network defense which let all incoming and outgoing traffic get monitored within defined security. The second piece of hardware. The second piece of hardware are intrusion detection prevention systems, IDS, IPS. Intrusion systems constantly scan the traffic of a network to check for suspicious and malicious patterns. Intrusion systems block threats impulsively within real time, for example, by dropping unknown packets in addition to blockage of IPs. Intrusion systems are able to include and disconnect devices which are compromised to help with the prevention of further corruption. An IPS intrusion prevention system constantly helps with monitoring, for example, the identification of suspicious and malicious behaviors within real time, meaning that they help with detecting suspicious hardware packets which are unknown, as well as blocking IP addresses which are harmful to the network and can lead to network threats and attacks. Different to firewalls, IPS devices are able to take action automatically by blocking and stopping threats which are being detected. For example, if a threat is detected through the firewall, the IPS device can automatically take action blocking those detected threats from coming into the firewall. Three, they help analyzing traffic patterns. They help with analyzing traffic patterns so that anonymous unknown signature attacks or behavior which is unusual. For example, if the IPS device checks that there are suspicious traffic patterns, it will automatically take its action by stopping those threats entering the traffic patterns. 4. IPS device systems can easily drop malicious packets before they reach their expected target. For example, if the IPS system is able to drop malicious packets simply before it's able to reach its maximum target. 5. IPS device systems are able to block traffic from suspicious or IP addresses which have already been blacklisted. For example, if IP devices can see suspicious traffic or blacklisted IP addresses, they can easily block them. 6. IP devices are able to isolate, such as disconnect devices which are compromised from the network so that there's no further chaos. For example, if a device gets disconnected from the network due to it being compromised, this happens to prevent further disasters. IPS devices and intrusion systems help with the protection against threats which are highly advanced in addition to the zero-day attacks as well as the brute force attempts. For example, IPS devices and intrusion systems are very helpful due to the protection which is against threats. They are particularly advanced within zero-day attacks and brute force attempts. 8. IPS device solutions regularly integrate along with firewalls so that the layered security gets provided. For example, IPS devices constantly integrate within firewalls, making sure that layered security is provided thoroughly. 9. IPS devices generally create specific reports that are detailed, which are helpful for security teams to understand what are the trends of the attack. For example, in an IPS device, an IPS device is able to create detailed reports which help the security team identify what is the trend of the attack and threats. The technology of IPS devices helps with strengthening the network resilience to actively avoid intrusions instead of just detecting them. For example, IPS devices can be efficient when it comes to strengthening network resilience rather than their detection. Third piece of hardware. The third piece of hardware to minimize network security threats are VPN gateways. VPN gateways help with the creation of security in addition to having encrypted tunnels for remote users who initially access networks which are internal, which help reduce network security threats. VPN gateways help with the protection of sensitive information via transit, along with maintaining confidentiality to help minimize the network security. VPN gateways make sure that authorized users are able to access resources that are private, which support secure remote work to help decrease network security threats. VPN gateways help with improvement of overall security by making sure that only authorized users are able to reach systems. For example, VPN gateways are useful as they improve security by making sure that authorized users have the ability to reach the internal systems. VPN gateways reduce the risk of attacks like man in the middle through the verification of both ends of a connection. For example, VPN gateways minimize the risk of attacks happening via the verification of both ends of the network connection. 3. VPN gateways have the ability to enforce access control policies to limit what users have access to. For example, VPN gateways can enforce access control rights and policies to what users have access to. VPN gateways support a variety of VPN protocols as well as IPsec, SEC, plus SSL, depending on the needs of security. For example, if VPN gateways have a wide range of support for VPN protocols, which include IPsec and SSL, which is dependent on the needs of security. VPN gateways are helpful for organizations to maintain privacy, such as protecting intellectual property. For example, a company may may use a VPN gateway for maintaining its privacy and protecting its intellectual property. 6. VPN gateways have encryption which help with preventing attackers intercepting or reading information within transit. For example, a VPN gateway may encrypt sensitive information on WhatsApp so that attackers can't intercept or read it within transit. VPN gateways are completely vital for security of remote work, especially when team members connect through public networks or via home networks. For example, if someone is using a VPN gateway, it's vital for them for their remote security work, especially if they are on a public network at work or even a private network at home. VPN gateways are used for the authentication of users before giving them access of their private network. For example, if a user wants to use their VPN gateway, they have to wait to be authenticated before access given to them to their private network. VPN gateways make sure that sensitive information which is transferred over the internet stays privately confidential as well as protected. For example, someone uses a VPN gateway which makes sure that their sensitive information is transmitted over the internet by staying completely private and confidential. VPN gateways create secure encryption tunnels for remote users to be able to have access to internal networking tools. For example, if someone who's working on an IT company, for example, if someone's working at an IT company, for example, if someone who is working at an IT company has got a VPN gateway, it will create them an encryption tunnel if they're working remotely for them to be able to access internal network materials. Now, fourth piece of hardware to minimize network security threats are security routers and switches. Security routers and switches have built-in security facilities such as access control lists, ACLs. Secure routers and switches help to enable the segmentation to detach systems which are critical. Secure routers and switches restrict the movement of attackers inside the network only if a single segment gets breached. Security routers and switches always get firmware updates with the router and switch to help with patch vulnerabilities in addition to strengthening network defenses. For example, in a company with the computers, routers and switches get firmware updates so that vulnerabilities are patched along with the strengthening of network defenses. Security routers and switches have a lot of intrusion detection along with further prevention capabilities. For example, security routers as well as switches will have multiple intrusion detection systems in addition to more prevention capabilities. Secure routers and switches help with the reduction of congestion, furthermore improving the performance of networks while sustaining security. For example, a college has multiple computers across the building. Secure routers and switches are helpful with the reduction of congestion in addition to improving performance networks while managing security within the college. 4. Secure routers and switches are able to manage virtual local area networks to separate systems which are sensitive from general users. For example, in an organization, secure routers and switches are capable of enforcing managed violence, virtual area, local area network. Local area networks so that systems that are sensitive get separated away from general users. Secure routers and switches have the ability to filter security routers and switches have the ability to filter traffic that is based on IP addresses, ports, as well as protocols. For example, in an IT security company, secure routers and switches have the capability of filtering traffic which is based on IP addresses, ports, along with protocols. 6. Secure routers and switches have got segmentation limits that limit the ability of attackers to move laterally if only a single part of the network isn't compromised. For example, if a state company agent company has secure routers and switches. An estate agent company has secure routers, which uses secure routers that have got segmentation limits in place with in place which limit the ability of attackers to remove if a single part of the network hasn't got compromised. 7. Secure routers and switch devices help assist network segmentation by dividing networks into smaller sized segregated sections. For example, an investment company has secure routers and switch devices which help with assisting network segmentation via the division of networks into smaller separated sections. Okay, now 8. Secure routers and switches let ACLs, access control lists, allow the administrators to have the control on which type of, such as the users gaining access to specific network materials. For example, secure routers and switches allow ACLs, which let administrators have control of what devices or users gaining granted access to specific network materials. Secure routers and switches continuously include built-in features in addition to access control lists. For example, in a large networking company, secure routers and switches will have access control lists with features that are built in security to reduce network security threats. Secure routers and switches constantly form a backbone of a network directly, such as manage data traffic. For example, in a large tech company, security and switches will always form backbones of a network in addition to directing and managing data traffic. Okay, now the 5th piece of hardware Now the 5th piece of hardware. Now the 5th piece of hardware to minimize network security threats is hardware security HMS modules. Hardware security modules help issue secure cryptographic storage such as operations. Hardware security modules help with protection of the integrity as well as the confidentiality of sensitive information. Hardware security modules help with strengthening the MFA through the use of devices that are similar to smart cards, such as tokens, which are biometric. Hardware security modules and tokens constantly enhance security overall by making sure that only users that are verified are able to access systems which are essential, verified are able to access systems which are critical. For example, hardware security modules HMS makes sure that only a verified user is allowed to access critical systems. 2. Hardware security modules keep reducing authentication tokens for the reliance of passwords which keep getting used repetitively, which are always weak. For example, hardware security modules HMS reduce authentication that keep getting repeated, which are continuously weak. Hardware security modules have the intention of protecting sensitive information which gets used in banks, the government, and in the trust system. For example, hardware intention of protecting sensitive that is used in banks and by systems, banks and the government, such as enterprise systems. Hardware security modules make those type of hardware tools completely complicated for attackers to steal. Just for example, having hardware security modules as a hardware tool makes it complicated for attackers to steal credentials. 6. Hardware security modules include biometric devices such as fingerprints, facial scanners, strengthen multi-factor authentication MFA. For hardware security modules have got biometric devices as well as facial scanners to make sure multi-factor authentication is strong are strong. Hardware security modules have got authentication tokens in addition to smart cards so that an extra layer of identity verification gets added. For example, authentication tokens are there along with smart cards to have an of identity verification. Hardware security modules make sure that sensitive keys don't ever leave the secure hardware boundary. For example, the hardware security module ensures you that the sensitive key never leaves the secure boundary of the hardware. Hardware security modules perform encryption. Hardware security modules perform encryption, such as decryption, in addition to digital signing operations which are protected within an environment. For example, hardware security modules perform encryption along with digital signing operations which have protection within an environment. Hardware security modules are helpful as they assist organizations to comply with strict standards in addition to PCI DDS. For example, hardware security modules help with keeping organizations compliant with strict standards such as PCI DDS. Hardware security modules are types of specialized hardware which are for storage and the management of cryptographic keys. For example, the hardware security modules are specialized hardware that's designed securely for storage and management of cryptographic keys. Okay. Now moving on to the first piece of software. The first piece of software to minimize network security is antivirus software. Antivirus software helps with the detection of viruses as well as Trojans in addition to the removal of malware. Antivirus software assists with scanning files along with programs within real time. Antivirus software is the key to preventing malicious malware from going across the network. Antivirus software is designed to minimize network security threats by protecting networks from malware. For example, if malware appears on the computer, antivirus software will remove it straight away. Antivirus software is able to continuously scan files as well as programs within real time to check there's no suspicious activity. For example, if antivirus software appears on the screen and it's scanning files, that means it's making sure that no suspicious activity is detected. Antivirus software is able to identify threats earlier. For example, if it identifies a threat earlier, it means that it has now been removed across all networks. Antivirus software often offers web protection. For example, if you open a web page on the browser, it protects it. 5. Antivirus software also uses behavioral-based detection to monitor unusual action to catch malware that's new. For example, on your computer, antivirus software can detect your behavior which is suspicious. 6. Antivirus software makes sure that automatic updates happen to ensure that the system has got protection against malware. For example, if you see antivirus software updating itself automatically, it means it's protecting your computer against malware. 7. Antivirus software is the key within cybersecurity to help maintain secure computer systems. For example, antivirus software plays an important role for protecting computers against cyber attacks. Antivirus software protects against infected files from across devices. If you have an infected file on the computer via antivirus software on the computer, antivirus software protects your computer against them by removing them. Antivirus software provides extra layers of security for personal and organizational systems. For example, antivirus can protect your computer by giving you extra personal layers of security to help reduce the risk of network threats. The second piece of hard software to minimize security threats is encryption software. Encryption software produces sensitive information into formats that are non-readable. Encryption software safeguards information during the storage, including transmission. Encryption only makes sure that users can access their data securely. Encryption software turns data into unreadable codes similar to scrambling bank details that involve online payments. For example, If making an online payment from a clothes shopping brand, which is a scam, the bank card details will be scrambled into unreadable codes, encryption software, unreadable codes. Encryption software prevents intercepted information from being unreadable. For example, a hacker will only be able to see symbols that are random. Encryption software keeps data that gets sent online securely safe, similar to encrypting your login. For example, if someone receives something online securely safe, then their login will be encrypted safely without security threats. 4. Encryption software helps keep lost devices safe through an encrypted USB that reveals nothing without a key. For example, if someone's phone gets lost or stolen, an encrypted USB is able to reveal nothing without a key. By all means, that anything on lost device is safe and backed up. Encryption software is widely used within organizations so that legal standards are met. For example, if a tech encryption widely, then legal standards of security will be met to prevent security threats. Encryption software is used on apps so that communication is secured. For example, on WhatsApp, communication is end-to-end encrypted, keep chats secure within conversations. Encryption software is able to store protected files. For example, when a BitLocker encrypts the hard drive of a laptop. Encryption software only lets authorized users decrypt data. For example, only a manager can decrypt data to access HR records. Encryption software also protects privacy through digital services like online shopping. For example, if someone shops online, their privacy through digital services will be protected via encryption. The third piece of software to manage network security threats is the Windows Defender, the firewall software. Windows Defender firewall software helps with the monitoring of ingoing and outgoing traffic, which constantly blocks unauthorized access. Windows Defender firewall software creates security policies which protect devices away from malware, including suspicious connections. Windows Defender firewall software helps with prevention of hackers from exploiting vulnerabilities along the network. Windows Defender software firewall acts as a filter of a protection which examines all network traffic, as well as blocking anything which appears to be suspicious or unauthorized. For example, if someone is on the computer, the Windows Defender firewall software is able to examine ingoing and outgoing traffic, such as blocking anything that's suspicious and unauthorized. 2. Windows Defender firewall software creates security boundaries within an organization's internal network, including wider internet, to help with the reduction of exposure to external cyber attacks. For example, in an IT company, in an IT organization, the Windows Defender firewall software creates security boundaries to the internal network, which includes wider internet with the reduction of exposure of external cyber attacks. 3. Windows Defender firewall software enforces strict security policies that are strict, whereas the firewall itself prevents malware from entering the system through connections from entering the system by connections which are harmful through websites that are malicious. For example, in university institution, the Windows Defender firewall software enforces security policies that are strict, whereas the firewall itself prevents malware from entering the system through connections which are dangerous or via websites that are malicious. Windows Defender firewall is able to monitor both incoming and outgoing information to make sure that harmful traffic can't enter and sensitive information can't exit without permission. For example, in a car dealership, where computers are being used, with the Windows Defender file software has capability of monitoring incoming and outgoing information to ensure that harmful traffic can't enter, including sensitive information that is not allowed to exit without permission. Windows Defender firewall is helpful for defending against the attempts of hacking through identification of unknown behavior patterns by stopping attackers from gaining unauthorized access. For example, in a car company full of computers, the Windows Defender firewall software is helpful for defending against the attempts of hacking threats via identification of unknown behavior by stopping attackers from having unauthorized access. For example, Windows Defender's firewall software can be customized within specific policies which allow organizations to control which types of applications, ports, and services have the exception to communicate. For example, in a healthcare organization, Windows Defender firewall software has got customized policies that control what applications, ports, and services have the exception for communication. 7. Windows Defender's firewall software, like many other firewalls, include the features such as intrusion detection, which help with alerting administrators when suspicious activity is being detected within the network. For example, in a retail organization, the Windows Defender firewall software, like many different firewalls, includes, for example, in a retail organization, the Windows Defender firewalls software, like many other different firewalls, features in addition to intrusion detection that help with alerting administrators when suspicious activity occurs and gets detected by the network. Windows Defender firewall software help with reducing the risk of data breaches through the blocking of unauthorized users from having access to files which are, along with internal systems. For example, in a large charity organization filled with multiple computers, the Windows Defender firewall software is able to reduce the risk of data being breached via the blockage of unauthorized users from gaining access to files that are confidential along with internal systems. 9. Windows Defender firewall software helps with maintaining secure environments through the prevention of employees from having access to untrusted or harmful websites. For example, in an educational organization, the Windows Defender firewall software helps with sustaining a work environment which is secure by preventing employees from getting access to non-trusted and extreme websites. 10. Windows Defender firewall software, which is constantly modern, includes threat analysis, which keeps the overall security tightened. For example, in the MOT automotive organization, the Windows Defender firewall software has got advanced features along with VPNs that support the filtering in addition to the real-time threats analysis. Okay, now the fourth piece of hardware. The fourth piece of hardware software to minimize network security threats is Nessus vulnerability scanning software. Nessus vulnerability scanning software helps scan software to check for vulnerabilities in addition to Nessus vulnerability scanning software helps scan networks to check for vulnerabilities in addition to misconfiguration patches that are missing, as well as software that's outdated. Nessus vulnerability scanning software helps with automated scanning through the integration along with SCM and SOAR for forceful security management. Nessus vulnerability scanning software has a variety of templates similar to ISO, HIPAA, along with PCI-DSS for auditing high compliance standards. Nessus vulnerability scanning software is able to generate reports which are detailed, showing the vulnerabilities and levels of severity within systems that are affected. They recommend fixes to help the organizations prioritize remediation. For example, if there's a vulnerability causing this, it will scan it and create digital reports of it. Nessus vulnerability scanning software has credential scans which use valid logins details to get in deeply into the information system, while the no while the non-credential scans can only check what is visible externally for example, Nessa's vulnerability scanning software can scan credentials that use logins that are valid to get in deeper into the information system, whereas non-credential scans can only see what is done visibly externally. Nessa's vulnerability scanning software also supports other scans like credentials, malware, and does compliance checks based on needs of the executive. For example, if there's a malware on a computer, the Nessus vulnerability software will scan it to check for security threats. 4. Nessus vulnerability scanning software has plugins which are small scripts which perform certain updates. However, they get updates regularly to stay current with newer threats as well as vulnerabilities. For example, Nessus vulnerability software use plugins that are turned into small scripts to regularly record the current ones with the latest threats. Nessus vulnerability scanning software is able to scan devices by sending probes and compare responses against vulnerability threats that are known. For example, Nessus scanning software has the ability of scanning devices through the scanning probes that compare responses, which are commonly known. Nessus vulnerability software is compatible with many other platforms, as well as integrating with security tools. For example, Nessus vulnerability scanning software can work with multiple platforms as well as the integration within security tools. The purpose of the Nessus vulnerability scanning software is to detect vulnerabilities like missing patches such as misconfigurations and software that's outdated. For example, its main purpose is to detect vulnerabilities and misconfigurations as well as outdated software. Nessus vulnerability scanning software helps to identify vulnerabilities within systems which are weak. They are known for their accuracy. For example, if a vulnerability is being scanned, it will get a detailed, accurate report. Nessus vulnerability scanning software helps with improving the security by providing earlier detection of weaknesses, of reducing the risk by helping organizations to sustain within high-level security standards. Now the last piece, fifth piece of software. The fifth piece of software to minimize security threats are VPN, virtual private network software. Virtual private network software ensures that encrypted data gets sent across through the internet. Virtual private network software helps with safeguarding users when they have access to public or untrusted networks. Virtual private network software helps with keeping IP addresses hidden to maximize tracking and interception. VPN software has key features with capability of hiding IP addresses of a real user. That is what masks the location and identity of the user, which including the risk of online tracking as well as profiling. For example, if someone has got VPN software, it has the ability of hiding IP addresses which are of a real user, which makes the identity and the location of the user itself by minimizing the risk of online tracking along with profiling. VPN software routes traffic via servers that are remote, which are located in other countries. This doesn't just enhance privacy, however, it even accepts users to access region-restricted content. For example, if someone lives in the Arabian Gulf, they are restricted from using Facebook. The VPN software can route traffic through servers that are located within the Arabian Gulf, which not only enhances privacy, however, it allows the user to access region-restricted content within the Arabian Gulf, like WhatsApp. This even helps with minimizing network threats. VPN software gets used in businesses so that employees are provided with secure remote access to internal systems, which helps with maintaining confidentiality, such as protecting company data from external threats. For example, a car dealership business provides it with secure remote access to external systems, which help with sustaining confidentiality along with protecting company data. Away from external threats. VPN software helps with defending against common cyber threats like a man-in-the-middle, where attackers try by intercepting the communication that's between user and website. For example, someone who's got VPN software installed on their computer to help with defense against known cyber attacks like IP address leaks. 5. VPN software helps with encrypting internet traffic by making sure the sensitive information such as login details, personal data, or even financial transactions can get intercepted easily by attackers. For example, someone has VPN software and the traffic makes sure that sensitive data such as login details, personal data, as well as financial transactions not being able to be intercepted by attackers. VPN software is very valuable, especially if public Wi-Fi networks in cafes, airports, and libraries aren't secure all the time, making users vulnerable to cyber attacks. For example, if someone is sitting in a cafe and they're using VPN software when the Wi-Fi in the cafe isn't secure, they are more vulnerable to cyber attacks. VPN software includes multiple additional security features that are similar to malware blocking. Kill switches such as DNS leak protection for the strengthening of line safety more further. For example, if someone uses VPN software, they will have features that come with it, which include multiple additional security features that are similar to malware blocking, kill switches, DNS leak protection, for strengthening online safety even further. VPN software creates an encrypted tunnel which is secure in between the user's device in addition to the internet. This helps to minimize security threats, to making sure that outsiders don't view or tamper data that's being transmitted. For example, if someone has a VPN software, it will create them a encrypted tunnel in between the user's device, such as the internet, which helps with reducing security threats by ensuring that outsiders don't view or tamper data which has been transmitted. 9. VPN software can reduce the amount of data which gets collected by website advertisers in addition to the internet service providers. This supports efficient digital privacy such as limited behavior tracking which helps with the reduction of security threats. For example, if a employee at work has got VPN software, it can reduce the amount of data which gets collected from websites and advertisers, as well as internet service providers, which supports effective digital privacy in addition to limited behavior tracking to minimize security threats. Even though VPN software is significant for enhancing security, however, they are not complete solutions by themselves. VPN softwares work efficiently when they get combined together with other measures that are protective, like stronger passwords, antivirus software, and safer browsing routines. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my presentation.